here's what we can talk about. Seth Trimble has announced he is going to return. Ian Jackson has announced that he is not going to return and that he is has entered the transfer portal. So, Adam, I think this goes along with the Final Four. So I'm going to bring a little bit of the Final Four discussion into this as well. I think there's a serious question of how do you win in college basketball anymore? And if you look at the 4 teams that made it to the Final Four this year, and I think you've seen this trend pretty significantly for a while now, it is teams that tend to be older, more experienced teams. Now, Duke was obviously an exception this year. The Blue Devils were powered by excellent freshmen, as we know, but they also didn't win it. And some of that...
Is that right?
Yeah.
Did they not win?
Yeah. I know that's a surprising development.
Huh.
And I think some of that inexperience in some critical times hurt Duke at the end. So, Adam, and I saw something that was like the last 4 national champions since the portal really became relevant, all of them had some number of retention of their roster from the previous year. Let's say it was 60%. I don't know if that's the exact number, but it was something like that. And I think that speaks a little bit to how you win now. And that's not some kind of new formula necessarily. But what I do think it is harder to do in today's landscape. And that is get talented guys and keep them on your roster for multiple years together. It's just harder to do because of how the options that players have now. And let's take Ian Jackson, for example. Ian Jackson came in as an extraordinarily highly touted and obviously very talented player. I think we can all agree from watching Ian Jackson play this year that he was not a finished product. He had some incredible offensive ability. His shot making is at a high level. He can hit difficult shots as well as anybody that we've seen as a Tar Heel in recent years. When he was going really good there in January, he was able to get to the cup a lot and finish around the rim, draw fouls, get to the free throw line. I think that waned some as the year went on, but we saw that the capability was there. I think it's also fair to say that Ian Jackson struggled on the defensive end for most of the season. I do think he got a little bit better, but it still wasn't at a really high level. And there was certainly room for growth in other aspects of his game so that he could impact Carolina winning the game if his shot wasn't going in. There were areas he could have grown to help the team win games if he was having an off night shooting. Adam, that's not a crazy summation for a freshman. There are some freshmen, the Cooper Flags of the world, who come in as a much more finished product, but those guys are rare. It is more likely that you are like an Ian Jackson, where there are very clear talents that you have that have made you be this highly touted player, but things you need to improve on. Well, pre-transfer portal, of course, still guys were trying to go to the NBA and would try to be one and done. But I think if you elected to stay a second year and you were someone like an Ian Jackson, you likely would have stayed in the same place. Well, now, if I'm a player like Ian Jackson and I don't get the response from the next level that I want, and there's some very clear things that I can work on, well, I'm going to go into the transfer portal because I am very talented. I can make a ton of money by doing this. And so that was a rambling lead in, Adam, to say how you build your roster now is a challenge more than ever before. I think sometimes these highly touted guys from the highly touted freshmen, and Carolina's got another one coming in next year in Caleb Wilson. You're riding a little bit of a difficult line with those guys. If it doesn't work immediately, it's just more difficult to do. And so how Carolina and how all these teams continue to try to figure out, how do I get a group of players that are talented to stay together for multiple years? That is going to continue to be the challenge for Carolina and everybody else moving forward.
How do you get to be a highly rated high school player? It's in comparison to your class. I'm not sure that really matters much anymore. Duke didn't just have highly rated players. They had highly rated freshman players who were ready to do what they were already good at the college level in an impactful way to help win games. And they had a class that fit together in a very unusually good way. Again, by the way, they did not win the championship. It's going to be hard to put a class together like that. But to me, more important than how highly rated you are is, do you do something that we can put on the team right now at the college level against guys 4 and 5 years older than you, and you can still do it at that high a level? And I think that's why Caleb Wilson is a great example. He seems to be a player who can make an impact for you defensively right now, which means that will be an asset to the Tar Heels this coming year. But you have to, the better way to win, it appears, is what you said, of have some experience, have guys who have been together for probably not 4 years.
No.
Maybe 2.
Can you get them together for 2?
You need 1 year where they're adjusting to their new level, since presumably you got them from a lower level. And then you need the next year where they break out, because they're better than everyone else's first-year guys. That's really what you need. And in your first year that you have them, you might take some hits. But that second year, if you can hold them together, you've got a chance to be better than everyone else's inexperienced guys.
Well, I think then that now Adam speaks a little bit to Seth Trimble, who's going to join us here in a while. You know, Seth coming back for what will now be his 4th year at Carolina. I think he very clearly is going to be, and let me clarify what I'm going to say after I say it, the centerpiece of what the Tar Heels are doing. And I don't mean that in a way of give the ball to Seth and get out of the way. What I mean that is he's going to be, for lack of a better term, kind of the face of what Carolina is. He's going to be the guy who knows Hubert Davis, knows the way that Carolina wants to play, will be looked upon to be a leader of the team, will be the one that has to try and assimilate a lot of new guys, freshmen. I mean, Carolina's going to be a lot of freshmen and a lot of transfers next year. How those pieces all fit together, some of that's on it. Seth Trimble's going to be a part of that, of how to get all of these guys to come together, understand how it is done here, and try to make it happen. What I do think Seth Trimble should have a lot of credit for is he has very clearly gotten better every single year. And I think the Heels need him to do that again. he's got to be more consistent from the outside. We all understand that. He was 14 of his first 28 from three-point range this past season. After that, he was below 30% for the rest of the year. So if that part of his game can become a little more consistent, if he can shoot not 45%, what about 35% from three? We know he can get to the rim. He upped his foul shooting tremendously this past year to where he was 80+%. He's a great on-ball defender. I think he can work on kind of defensive awareness within the whole scheme of things. But there's no doubt he's a great on-ball defender. His athleticism is through the roof. All the things that we know. So, Adam, I feel like it's kind of gotten lost in the shuffle a little bit because this time of year is so much about what new pieces are you, this guy, and look what he did here, and watch his highlight film. Seth Trimble is a guy who has just gotten better every single year. The Heels need him to get better again. But to have an anchor like that, someone who can be the one, and you are looking to him to be the one to go, okay, all you new guys, let me show you how we do it here. I think that's a huge piece to hold on to.
And we'll talk about this with Seth some more, but especially if he's willing to be the guy, be the face, without always being the high scorer, because those are two different things. If he's capable of being the face without saying, I need X number of shots a night, which I've never seen him say, so I don't expect him to start doing it now, but stranger things have happened. Then you've got a great team. Then you've got the potential for a great team because you've got a leader-type guy who is more interested in winning than in how many points do I get to score. And that's always been the type of person he is. I would expect that to be that again. Remember how when somebody transferred, you used to think, wow, something must really be wrong. Like it was noteworthy that someone was leaving. Now it's the exact opposite.
Yes.
When someone stays, it's noteworthy that they stay, and my respect for them exponentially multiplies because there's so many other opportunities. I mean, all the things we've said about Seth Trimble also make him incredibly attractive to everyone else.
Sure.
Who would also then love, and you've got the brand power of, I played at North Carolina. That is attractive on the open market. So the fact that and look, no one knows better than us that things can change. But as of today, Seth Trimble is going to be on the team next year, and that's what everyone expects. That's a great asset to have and something to build around from a building a team perspective, which I think we could agree that this past year, from the building a team perspective, not well built.
Well, and this will be the last point on this, and then we can talk a little bit more about Final Four, kind of big picture stuff. How this team for Carolina ultimately comes together is going to be fascinating to see, Adam, because Carolina, there is no doubt from a pure talent perspective, Carolina there's some talented guys. Ellie Cadeau's now he has committed to Michigan. Ian Jackson is in the transfer portal. Drake Powell, don't know what he's going to do. I think it's fair to say Drake will either be a Tar Heel or will be in the NBA, one of the two. But those are some talented guys.
RJ Davis is gone.
RJ Davis is gone after 5 years and leaving as Carolina's second all-time leading scorer. Those are some talented players. Let's say the Tar Heels were able to get a big 7-footer. Let's say the Heels were able to get some size and shooting on the wing. Let's say they were able to get maybe a heady, tough little nut point/combo guard who can handle the ball and shoot. Well, all those things are things that I think we all thought the Tar Heels needed this year. So while their overall, just pure talent level might be lower, how it might come together, it might fit together better. We don't know that. We still have to see it. But I think certainly on paper, if these type of things were able to be added, you could envision a group that fit together better. Now, how do those personalities fit? How do those games fit when it's actually on the court, not just on paper? Those are all things that have to be, only time will tell us that. But it's going to be a fascinating year because, look, there's no denying this is an important year upcoming for Carolina basketball. There are going to be a lot of critical eyes on the Tar Heels this year to see how they do. And so it's on the way. How will it come together? We'll all find out together.
And the only other thing I would say is I feel like I've probably said this so much that people are tired of it, but the basketball IQ has to be better. Of course, we know nothing of these hypothetical additions. No. Hypothetically, their basketball IQ might be high. I do know that some of the departures, and we're not talking about R.J. Davis, basketball IQ not in the top 4 or 5 assets they possessed. So you probably have improved in that way. So in addition to the just on paper improvements, I do think there's some intangible improvements that are in the process of happening. And that was an area where Carolina fell short a lot this past year. In addition to just some physical shortcomings, there were intangible shortcomings that I do feel like are being addressed. And when we finally see the roster on paper, we'll know for sure.